I'll also add a meeting time discussions on the agenda. So I know we don't have everybody here, but people can at least express their affinities. So should we get started?
Yeah, I think so. Either get started or wait another minute, but given the sort of holiday time period, it might be that we'll have light attendance today.
Well, it's a good attendance, much better than I expected, really.
Well, maybe we got a bunch of new people on account of getting visible at KubeCon. In fact, maybe you want to go over if anybody new wants to introduce themselves. That might be a good thing to put on the agenda as well.
Yep.
And for those here for the first time, this meeting is public and recorded. It later will be posted to YouTube. So if you're not comfortable with getting recorded, drop off. That's the community standard for the Kubernetes project.
Hey, Steve, while we're waiting.
Yeah.
A couple meetings ago, you said you had some appetite to participate in the Open Glossary Project, and I sent you an email. I might have even sent you two, and I never got a response. So.
Okay, yeah, I was kind of buried. I had 6 presentations at KubeCon and did reInvent.
I totally get it. I totally get it. I mean, you haven't missed anything.
Yeah.
So you want to just connect after the first of the year?
Sure.
Okay. I've got to watch my coffee. I'll be right back.
Okay.
So let's wait for Matt, and then maybe we can start with introductions. Okay, so yeah, a lot of new names. So anybody wants to introduce to the group what they're doing, what's their interest in the Edge and Kubernetes and this working group in particular?
This is Daniel Garcia from Infoblox. I'm attending for the first time. We have an on-prem solution that we've done with Docker and now Docker Compose, and we're hoping to align that with Kubernetes Edge so we don't duplicate the effort that we're doing with our on-prem solution.
Hi, this is Bill Fischhofer. I'm with Lonaro. We have an edge computing group that's looking at Kubernetes and other technologies.
Hey, this is Dwayne Bradley from Duke Energy. Dejan, I've actually talked to you after the deep dive session there at Kubernetes or at KubeCon the other week. So I'm just trying to, this was first I'd heard of it, the whole working group for the Edge. And it's something that we've been definitely looking at Duke Energy for, pushing Kubernetes out to the edge of the electric grid to have applications run along the edge of our feeders. And so I'm definitely interested in what's going on with the work.
Great. Welcome.
Okay, if there's nobody else, new or old, who wants to introduce themselves, I guess we can move on.
So,
Hi,
yeah, go ahead.
hi. This is Girish BK here. I'm from NetApp in India. So I have been evaluating edge platforms from a couple of 1.5 years from now. Basically looking at Azure IoT and the other EdgeX Foundry platforms. So recently I heard about this from the KubeCon conferences, that this new working group which has been basically monitoring on developing the framework for pushing the Kubernetes at the edge. And I'm interested in looking into this at a scale, how this could be deployed, and how this framework comes up and how we can leverage that. That's my interest, and I'm interested in I'm interested in contributing for this group, and then whatever the documents come out, I can review that and provide my feedback.
Okay, thanks.
Girish, by the way, what's the time in India right now? Just a segue into next topic.
This is 9:30 p.m. here.
9:30 p.m. Okay.
I just finished my dinner and I'm just sitting relaxed.
Perfect fun for Friday night, right?
Right.
I guess I could introduce myself. This is David Lyle. I work for Intel and attended the sessions at KubeCon, but we have a pretty broad set of interests from the IoT space to more of a traditional edge space as well. So interested in participating in this group on all those levels, essentially.
Great. Welcome.
Okay, well, Dan, why don't you take it over on discussing a new meeting time?
Yeah, just for the, at KubeCon, Cindy asked if we could move this meeting for 1 hour later, basically to like 9 a.m. Pacific time, which is fine for me, but basically that means pushing to the 6 p.m. or even later for Friday evening for other people in Europe and more to the east. So then we started discussing, should we move it to some other day or something else? I don't have a definite answer now. So I started a little, doodle poll just to see where people are with, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, this hour and one hour later. But there were some questions from China as well that these meetings time are not perfect for people in China and preferably also in India, right? So anybody having any thoughts, preferences about that? So it's not something we should decide today, especially because it's holiday and a lot of people are not here, but I'm just interested.
Yeah, also it's obviously unfair sampling to just ask people who already were able to make this time. So.
Yeah, I was just, thinking to start discussion with people who are here today, if they have any preferences, thoughts, best practices from other groups, things like that.
There's honestly no one way. There's no one time that's going to work. So I don't know what the right rotation frequency is, but maybe it's quarterly, maybe it's, alternating between two, but there's really no perfect answer, I don't think.
The other thing I'd suggest is I personally would like to avoid Thursdays because it's already a congested day for a whole tier of, the Kubernetes project has lower level working groups and SIGs that fold up into the community SIG and the architecture SIG. And many of those are on Thursday morning. And I like to go to them, and you pretty much can't get a slot Thursday morning that doesn't conflict with some of those top tier Kubernetes SIGs.
Got it. Would Wednesday work for you, Steve?
Wednesday's fine with me.
Cool. Because yeah, it might be easier, at least for people in Europe, to get them on the Wednesday 6 p.m. than on Friday 6 p.m.
Right. I wouldn't want to have it on my start of the weekend myself. So I sympathize with that attitude. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So let's see how it goes. If you want to join the discussion on the Google groups, it'd be good. So maybe for starters, as Preston said, like maybe move it for Wednesday, this 1 hour later, and then we can see maybe in next quarter to make a time that's more suitable for Asia.
Yeah, I see Bill left a comment in the chat saying there's no good time for everyone and we should alternate, and that sounds reasonable to me. Whether we alternate every other meeting or quarterly, I'm not so sure. It's tough to remember if you step away which one is active for the next slot if you do it every time. But
well, the problem with alternating meetings is that you always have a certain amount of duplication. And if you try to do it on a less frequent basis, then you just sort of split into two different communities.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so maybe, we can't make a decision here. It wouldn't be fair. And let's wait for the poll results and comments that people might make on the mailing list. And
I'll pass this as a reply to the mailing list, just as one of the ideas that, we won't left anybody hanging. So we'll, wait a little bit after the holidays to see what their preference is for now, but into the future that we plan to alternate and to change slots from time to time, just to make everybody.
And the other thing for newcomers is, like all of Kubernetes, this is democratic to a degree, and it's not just the meeting times, but the agenda as well. So anybody new here is free to suggest items for the agenda. It sounds like some of you are coming from companies that are focused on Edge and IoT. I think we're amenable to brief demos or presentations. We're not really looking for sales pitches, but if you wanted to get into technology coverage and things that fall somewhat short of a sales pitch, that'd be great if you want to put yourself in on the agenda for a future meeting.
I'd like to add for the meetings that there's 3 of us now on the sharing via video. So if you are able and comfortable sharing by video, I would suggest you do that. I think it makes the meetings a lot more personable. And somebody just turned on their video. How awesome. Yeah, don't feel obligated to. I know some people aren't comfortable with it, but I like it a lot. And I think it helps get to meet people that you don't actually get to meet in person very often.
Since this is sort of has some new attendees, perhaps someone could give a quick 2-minute summary of what the goals of this group is.
Well, I'll try, and I'll let maybe some of the other people speak too, because it might, I'm not claiming that I'm authoritative, but it's addressing the subject of utilizing Kubernetes at edge or IoT locations where you might face issues like a network that isn't constantly connected, heavy resource constraints, unattended operation where you don't have IT staff to maintain it, and a number of other issues there. So there are some thoughts and some people
we're interested in,
but others think that there might be plenty of room for improvement.
Yeah, The other thing I'd add to that list is heterogeneous environments. Since we, I mean, what we're focused on also clusters that have mixes of ARM and x86 nodes.
Yeah, one thing that has come up is that there is a potential, now this isn't in the box now, of going so far as suggesting that Kubernetes could be a control plane for things that aren't even running a Docker runtime and are not running Linux. Anybody else want to contribute to the thoughts on what this group is about? And if you watch the recording from KubeCon, the intro to this group, we opened the presentation with kind of what this group is about.
Okay.
And the link to that recording and the deck is in the meeting notes.
I see that.
So one thing I'll add that I think is one of the trickier areas to kind of define this is the other end of the spectrum. In other words, how to differentiate from hybrid environments. So how much edge is too big to still be considered edge? I think that's still a, evolving threshold.
And just to round all this up, I think like we defined a couple of actually goals for the group, and that is to like try to educate the community in person, try to get a best practices known so far. That's why having these kind of demos and on the topic of the demos, if you go to the agenda doc, you can see for the last couple of meetings we have different kind of demos from different kind of companies and the groups here, which were very valuable in terms of giving us the use cases and the problems and the challenges and how they solve it. So that's one thing. The other thing would be to try to document all these best practices, try to find the shortcomings in the Kubernetes project, and maybe try to resolve those within the proper SIGs. And if things, also define the things that, as Preston said, are not the edge or are not appropriate edge use cases for the Kubernetes, and maybe try to tackle those with some new projects.
And if you are facing a large cluster that perhaps goes over whatever this nebulous breaking point is between being edge or not, there is a SIG called Kubernetes on-prem. I went to meetings on that maybe 5 months ago, and it seems to have very little activity. And there's obviously overlap of some issues between on-prem versus edge. So just throwing that out there where you might want to dabble in looking at that on-prem group as well.
Okay, yeah. Another thing I wanted to briefly discuss maybe today, and we can continue, but I wanted to talk about this even at KubeCon, but it was too busy, so we never found time. And that is maybe over the holidays, everybody should think about what are some particular goals we want to achieve in 2019. So what should we focus on, and for example, how are we going to proceed with the white paper, shape that it is, so we can push it forward and actually publish it as a document, or just leave it in this fluid state as a kind of onboarding document to the group. So what do you guys think?
I have a suggestion. I would really like to see, and I think there's a lot of others that like to see, sort of reference designs or at least architectural patterns for using Kubernetes at the edge, to cover the distinct use cases entirely, on the device edge running on the device edge running on a rack that's near the device, a combination of, infrastructure edge plus device edge. And I think seeing those patterns and putting some thought into how Kubernetes will work, where the gaps are, where technology needs to be built, where things need to be proven out. I think that would be just incredibly valuable for not only the Kubernetes community, but the wider community that's thinking about how to develop apps for edge in general.
I'd second that. I mean, one of the things that we're doing is producing a reference platform for edge computing, which is intended to be a sort of a packaging up of examples and best practices in a deployable manner, not necessarily to allow people to use it in production, but rather to encapsulate some of these best practices and patterns that seem to have some traction.
Steve, you're on mute. Steve?
You appear to be muted.
Sorry, I was muted.
Yeah.
So I added that to the notes, and I'm wondering what the best way to get started on that is. I'm sort of thinking that rather than just put out a blank document and have people start throwing paragraphs in there, that maybe some people who are actively working on this could give presentations on ideas for reference architectures and why you came to the conclusion that these patterns are a good idea.
I also think that, maybe this introductory white paper is not the best place to do it. So, it should have a limited scope just to, introduce people to the topic. And then also, maybe each reference architecture deserves its own kind of place, right? So so far we saw that they're all very different and very individual. So maybe we should tackle them one by one.
Yeah, I think that my experience just chatting with random people at those sessions at KubeCon are that people are coming to this group with anything from small, but maybe multiple server Kubernetes installations at edge to tiny things based on microcontroller boards. And the reference architecture for those two things might be quite different.
Right.
Anyway, I don't hear any objections to working on it. The only issue is how we get started and what form ultimately it is recorded in. A doc would seem good as an end goal, but maybe to get started, this should be more of a, the closest we can come to a whiteboard discussion over Zoom, which means discussions, presentations. That's just my thoughts.
In my mind, the best end goal, a deliverable for each would be some kind of a GitHub repo with something that could be actually, deployed somewhere and demoed. It might not be, possible for every use case, but, where possible, it'd be good to have. But yeah, that's the end goal, right? Starting with a discussion and some kind of a doc is a good start.
Well, we got dead air. Anybody else got anything they want to talk about? Otherwise, maybe we'll call this a little early.
I have one thing.
Sure.
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm looking to put together is a bench of panelists to lead a panel discussion on edge computing that I'm going to pitch to all the interesting shows, starting with OSCON, which I wanted to have an open source flavor. So I think the title of the panel would be like Open Source at the Edge. And the OSCON deadline is January 15th. So that's gonna be the first one that I submit to. And I'd love to have, one or two people from this working group or more raise their hand and say, yeah, if it works out, if the timing is convenient, I'd love to be considered as part of the bench for panels like that.
When is OSCON and what location?
OSCON is July 15th through the 18th, and it's in Portland. The CFP is due on the 15th of January, though.
I guess I might consider it, but I'm going to have to look at the calendar because I think that the organization I work for already has slotted sponsorships at conferences, and if there's any conflict, then the official corporate engagement is the one that wins for me.
You can't fly it under the open source radar?
Well, no, there are a lot of open source conferences, particularly if you go international.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I would do this. I'm only going to do this.
I believe that there might be one in Tokyo in that time period, but like I say, I have to look at the calendar.
Totally get it. Okay, how about I do this? I'll put sometime in the next week or so, I'll put together a list of the conferences that I'm proposing, and I'll just send it to the email list. And anybody that wants to raise their hand, and if not, I can try to represent this group on the panels as well. So we'll just handle it formally. But I'd like to have participation from CNCF and Kubernetes. And I think this is the right group.
And I think that the last KubeCon was the first one we had from this group with the intro and deep dive sessions. And once again, any newcomers, the links to those videos and decks are in the meeting notes. But I suspect that that will become a regular occurrence at all the KubeCons. I'd certainly be amenable to doing that myself, and I'm planning on being at those. So I think the next one up is KubeCon Shanghai coming up in June, and shortly thereafter Barcelona, I believe.
I think Barcelona is before.
Oh, before, okay.
It's in May.
And then without official sanction, I gave a presentation on Edge and IoT at the Open Source Summit in Europe, and I think I plan on doing those on a recurring basis too, as part of my job. So
great. Well, I'll put you down as a tentative volunteer, and we can work that out.
So Matt, I'm generally interested as well, but
okay.
I can't get any hard commitments, before checking the schedules and budgets.
I totally understand. I'm just I'm looking for interest, not commitment at this point. Okay,
interest,
great. Okay.
Definitely.
Okay, super. Well, I got two, and I'll send to the mail list like I suggested, and see if there are others that come out of the woodwork.
Perfect. So by the way, on the similar topic, I think I checked the other day, and for KubeCon Europe, the CFP actually closes something similarly, like January 18 or something like that. So if you have some other idea, I'm not sure if we would have the same working group sessions there assigned, but if anybody wants to present anything else on the topic, I think.
Yeah, I think, Dan, the normal expectation, because I'm chair of another SIG, is that the groups and SIGs put on an intro and deep dive. That doesn't mean the content has to be the same, although it is acceptable and seems fairly common to repeat when you do it in different geographical regions, because you do get different people there. So
cool. Yeah, I hope by May we'll have some more material to present, maybe a particular use case to demo. That'd be cool. So, by the way, I canceled the meeting on the January the 4th, thinking that most people would be out. Is that okay with everybody? Or should I put it back in and then see who?
It's okay with me. Technically I'm going to be working, but I suspect nothing's likely to have happened between now and then. So it might be pretty dead air.
Yeah. All right, then I think we can wrap up for today, right?
Bye, everybody.
Thank
Take
you.
care and enjoy the holidays.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.